Но то, что вот этот Алеша известно Болгарии всей.
And you're paying more than you did in 2016 and 2017. You're going to possibly be paying more than what you paid during the Trump era. Uh, 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 there's no reason to think that this racial de-alignment won't continue, right? And the reason why it's going to continue, and maybe I could end on this note. Why can we accept an acceleration of racial de-alignment? And why is this going to be bad? Well, here's a clip about that Blexit movement from Candace Owens. And if you guys don't know what it is, here's a description.
Movement is encouraging young black voters in Charlotte and nationwide to leave the Democratic Party. It's called Blexit, for Black Exit.
The goal is to encourage black voters not to automatically accept political traditions that previous generations may have followed. One local leader told Channel 9's Tina Terry that supporters are hoping to be a big influence in next year's election.
To some, Pierre Wilson is a walking enigma, young, black, and conservative.
I always tell people that Republican to me is the party, but conservative is your values. I vote my values.
Wilson is a 30-year-old single father who moved to Charlotte from Maryland.
I grew up a Democrat. My mom, dad, grandparents, everyone's Democrats in my family.
But he deviated from that tradition, becoming the local leader of a movement called Blexit, which encourages black voters to leave the Democratic Party.
It is time for us to stand up for our community boldly, to look the Democrat Party in the eye and to tell them that you are going to fight for our votes.
He says this speech, delivered last year by Blexit founder Candace Owens, challenged him to question the black community's continued support of the Democratic Party. State numbers show North Carolina has more than 1.4 million black voters. The vast majority, about 80%, are registered Democrats. 18% are unaffiliated. Only 2.3% are registered Republicans.
Why aren't we further along? Why are our kids still failing in schools? The Democrats have had control of our community for years.
It's the truth, right? Isn't that true? I said earlier, we're stirring this question of why maybe most people won't be on the edge of their seats about this fucking election. It's because you're either well off enough that you don't really give a shit, right? Or you are poor enough and haven't moved the needle enough that you don't believe in the process, right? Either you have no skin in the game or you don't believe in the process. And his point was correct. Why aren't we further along? Why are we, after Obama's tenure, still, as black people, at 1989 levels of wealth? Why is it after Trump and coronavirus, we're probably moving closer to like the mid-1980s now? And why is it after Biden? That's not going to stop. We're not going to get an acceleration of black wealth under Biden. That's not going to happen, okay? So there's no reason, right, to vote for Democrats if they don't give you anything, okay? They're not giving you anything. They're giving the culture wars to the suburbanites who will say, you know what? This fucking like real life drama is a lot more energizing and fun than my like boring ass life drama. So I'm going to get really wired in this. I'm going to say I'm a liberal. They're attacking my empathy. They're playing on the wrong kind of feelers, as it were. And I'm going to vote for Biden, right? They get the culture war. You don't get shit. Because it seems like black people aren't that motivated by a culture war. Because that culture war that Trump is waging on the behalf of white people, right? With the racist dog whistles, that is not racist enough for black people to say, why don't we just try it, right? Why don't we just try it this time? Even if it's like a completely fucking losing proposition, and it is, let's just try it.
Julia Robinson Moore, an associate professor at UNC Charlotte, says the Republican Party was once more popular in the black community. She says that began to change in the 1930s after FDR implemented programs to help black Americans struggling under segregation and the Great Depression. But she says today's tech-savvy and educated millennials are now analyzing history and present-day policies.
So they're understanding that there's still all of these economic, social, and political inequities, and they're asking the question, what are both parties doing?
Wilson says his research led him to leave the Democratic Party. He now supports President Donald Trump.
The African American poverty rate has reached its lowest level in the history of our country.
I didn't originally like President Trump. I didn't.
Did you vote for him?
I didn't vote for him originally.
Wilson and other Blexit supporters from Charlotte recently visited the White House for a Black Leadership Summit. They say criminal justice reform is just one reason they now support the GOP.
Lowest black unemployment rate, poverty rate, most people working ever.
An alarming stance to some young black leaders on the left who question the Blexit movement, like Allison Allen. She's president of the Young Democrats of Mecklenburg County.
I think it aligns with Trump, and some of the things that he has said has aligned with white supremacy, xenophobia, and then also the GOP party itself has been silent when it comes to his ideas.
And obviously, the natural rejoinder to that objection, who gives a fuck what the GOP messaging is? Who cares that Trump said racist things? What people have just pointed out is the fact that black people, you could say, it's Trump or it's not Trump. Again, this is like the Obama economy, but black people under Trump are doing better than they were, right? Black people under Trump, they're not tuned in to the same fucking culture war that all these libs are. Like, I'm not sure who she is. What was her title? Okay, President, Young Democrats of Mecklenburg County. Like, she seems like a very posh, like, educated person who's nice and smart and pays her taxes, right? And understands, like, what some good policies are for black people and for America as a whole. But since that's the case, she's also really tuned into the culture wars. And many black people and many people in general are not tuned into the culture wars. Those culture wars are good enough to swing elections and to even turn out enough people for special circumstances, such as like a completely like once in a fucking lifetime candidate that you could use as a fucking lightning rod for the worst of your fantasies and hatreds, and the worst of your imaginings of what America is, because America is actually everything that Trump in fact is, but with typical like liberal imaginings, this is America in like very, very small concentrated, like pockets, right? America isn't really like Trump, right? And maybe, Allison Allen doesn't believe that America is really like Trump. But the fact is, if you're not Allison Allen, if you're a black person that is, just completely just like shattered, right? Completely does not feel that your life has objectively or subjectively gotten better since the 80s when you started bleeding wealth, and now you're back to 80s wealth. Now we've had an entire generation of time pass, and you look back on your life and nothing has fucking changed for you, right? Like, if you're that black person, you're going to be interested in things like, well, unemployment is better under Trump. I'm hearing all this culture war stuff, but my life seems to be okay. And you're going to bleed support, especially if you get, celebrity figures that, people like Kanye or whatever, like, yeah, they're used by the Republican Party. No, most people don't pay attention to them. But, we have razor thin margins in our elections. This is what's enough to sway elections. Like, don't be so sassy saying like we won by the biggest, margin, like 5 million votes ever. Who gives a shit? You've also won by one of the lower electoral vote margins in recent history as well. Like that is also true. So anyway, just like whenever you hear stuff like this, like think about it from the perspective of the people making these claims, and think about what the material reasons are for conservatives and libs to make the kinds of claims that they make, knowing that they, inhabit the kind of circles that they inhabit.
And some of the things that he has said has aligned with white supremacy, xenophobia, and then also the GOP party itself has been silent when it comes to his ideals.
I'm looking at...
And black people as a voting bloc, again, don't give a shit. The racism was not overt enough to not lose black support to Trump. That is a glimpse of the future.
Looking at all these things, and I'm like, well, if he's a racist, he's doing a horrible job at being a racist.
Wilson says the most discrimination he sees is from those who oppose his political shift.
I've been called every name in the book: coon, Uncle Tom, some stuff I probably can't say on camera. But one thing no one can call me is insane, because the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result.
Well, that's one definition of insane. Another definition of insane is doing something that has clearly a 0% chance of success and doing it anyway just to try something, right? That's also insane. You could, of course, and this is the unfortunate part about all these like fucking Blexit videos. They all like build up in a way, right? Where they go over very obvious flaws in the Democratic Party. They say Democrats haven't done shit for us. Why should we vote for them? And because there's that two-party ping pong, right? Democrats didn't do shit for us, and these have been Democratic counties for so long. Clearly, it means Republicans might do something for us, or can do something for us, or will do something for us. That is insane, right? No one watching Trump in 2015 or 2016, and no one that knows anything about Republican versus Democrat politics, they should not reach the conclusion that the rational choice is to vote for Trump. The rational choice, when you're building up all these reasons to not vote for Democrats, is to then give all the good reasons to vote third party. It's not to throw your fucking vote away on Trump. Just like, people get it confused. They say, throw your vote away on the Green Party. No, you fucking throw your vote away voting for Biden, just like this guy voted, threw his fucking vote away voting for Trump. You guys are engaging in very similar behaviors. I understand that in a kind of absolute moral sense, your behavior, yes, is going to be better in the short term. But in the long run, what you're doing, which is voting for an administration that will be a hobbled, do-nothing administration that will absolutely fucking own coronavirus, a downturn, everything, and will own the VP pick. If it's not going to be a decrepit fucking 82-year-old Biden running for re-election in 2024, it's going to be Kamala Harris. And if it's not Kamala Harris, it means that we have an absolute fracture line developing that is going to come not later but rather sooner. But in an absolute sense, both of you guys, whether you're voting Biden or you're voting Trump, you're wasting your fucking vote. It's a wasted fucking vote. It's a wasted vote because, ironically, it's a wasted vote. Ironically, for the same reason that he says it's a wasted vote. We keep doing the same shit and we keep getting the same results. Well, let's expand that, shall we? We keep doing the same shit. And what is that same shit that we're doing? It's not we're just voting for Democrats all day, every day, and look at our black cities. They're so fucked up. It's we're voting for one of the two parties over and over again. Because if you don't like black cities and you think that they're so bad and scary and poor, even if in many cases that's objectively the case, do you want to be in a fucking typical hardcore Trump voting city? Is that what you envision to be like the counterweight to like the black city? It's going to be the Trump voting, hardcore, forever Republican rural fucking county. It's going to be the meth heads, and it's going to be the fentanyl addicts. Instead of being one of the, victims of structural racism in the black community, which like offs you prematurely because of gang warfare or because of poor health outcomes due to like partly the distribution of food in black communities, or the fact that black people have a higher consumer price index to deal with for both cheaper and more expensive food, and in every other rubric imaginable. How did I get on this rant? Instead of being killed by that, you'll be one of the like insane Trump voters that thinks that Trump is going to solve your fentanyl epidemic. So instead of you dying in the black community under those circumstances, you're going to be dying in the rural community under these new circumstances. And because, that's the thing, like, white people resent black people because they're like, oh, fuck, all this shit about black privilege. And look at me, like, my life is just so fucked up. Like, I want to, I wish I had some of that, black privilege. I wish I had affirmative action. It's like some fucking shit kicker who says that, if it wasn't for this fucking affirmative action, I would have been the guy in Harvard, right? I would have been the guy that's like a high paid lawyer now working from home, right? I wouldn't have to be where I am right now. That's the white person, like in rural fucking Alabama, looking at a black person. If that's what white people do all the time, I have no reason to, assume that black people, when they imagine like what is the best of the white world, that best of does not look how you fucking think it looks. Just like white privilege has been, I don't want to say it's been overstated because it's real, but it's been used for the wrong purposes. The lacks in the white community have been so under the radar. You didn't hear shit about fentanyl during the Obama years, or the decline in lifespan in many white voters since the 90s until Trump took office. Okay, so we shouldn't be like looking over the fence at each other, just imagining how much greener it is, like based on some fucking like demographic question, right? That's never the answer, right? That's never the answer. He is this Blexit voter. He is, in a twisted fucking way, leveraging identity politics in the same way that a shit lib leverages identity politics on, MSNBC. He's doing the same thing. He's leveraging identity politics in the same way. Oh, well, no, it's not in the same way, right? But he's still, in a twisted way, leveraging identity politics, right? And in this case, part of it, it's not, to him, he might think that it's, formally and truly and purely racialized. I think, his identity politics definitely fractures, on like racial identity lines, which is why this video exists. But another fracture point that he's not considering is, hey, I am assuming that there are only two parties. And if everyone around me has the Democratic Party identity, and I could be the fucking Republican Party identity, and nobody else around me is in the Republican Party, and I have this like, cultural power now, this cultural capital. I have an in-group. I have other black voters who are just like me. And the only reason why, and that's the thing, he could say third party, but the average person is not motivated to say third party because there's a far bigger place for you, right, under the tent of the Republican Party. If you have a two-party system and you're doing this fucking ping pong thing where every 2 years you think one party is the good party and the other party is the bad party, you're going to end this ping pong in 2020 saying, I'm going to vote for Trump because he's the other side of that ping pong. So it's the same identity politics game.